I swerved to avoid a car and saw my dead sister staring at me. She was supposed to be gone, but she left a warning I was never meant to find. "Do you know how fast you were going?" the officer asked, his flashlight cutting through the dust that still swirled around my crumpled hood. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My eyes were locked on the other car, the little red Mazda I'd been trying not to hit. It was half off the shoulder, hazard lights flashing like some desperate Morse code, and standing just behind it, frozen in the beam of my headlights, was my sister. My dead sister. That's what made my legs go weak. Not the accident, not the near miss, but seeing her. Anna. Same jeans. Same beat-up denim jacket she wore that last day. Same scar under her eye from when she fell off her bike in 8th grade. I blinked hard, trying to reset my brain. Maybe I hit my head. Maybe I was seeing things. But she was there. Let me back up a second. My name's Drew. I'm 33. I work nights as a paramedic in Lafayette Parish. I've seen some twisted stuff. Car wrecks, overdoses, suicides. After a while, your brain starts to compartmentalize. You stop reacting like a human and start reacting like a system. Treat the bleeding, check the vitals, stabilize the patient. Feelings come later, if they come at all. But nothing in the back of that ambulance, not a single horror, ever shook me like this. Anna died 5 years ago. She was 24. It was a hit and run, late at night, just outside Shreveport. They said it was a black SUV. No plate, no witnesses. The case went cold after a month. And my family? We froze right along with it. So seeing her now, right in front of me on some empty stretch of road off Highway 90, was like watching your past come back wearing someone else's skin. The officer tapped on my window again, more impatient this time. "Sir?" I rolled it down and managed, Yeah, sorry. I was reaching for something. Swerved." "License and registration," he said, not buying a word. As I fumbled with my glove box, I kept glancing at the girl by the Mazda. She hadn't moved. Not 1 inch. And the weirdest part, no one else seemed to see her. The officer didn't look her way once. When he stepped back to his cruiser, I finally climbed out, legs shaking like I'd run a marathon. I walked past my headlights down the gravel shoulder toward the Mazda. The air smelled of hot metal and pine needles. Still no movement. "Anna?" I whispered. She turned her head slightly, just enough for me to see her face. And I swear on my life, it was her. Pale, freckled, eyes wide with something between fear and recognition. Then she did something I'll never forget. She smiled, a sad, tired smile, and whispered, "You weren't supposed to see me." A second later, she vanished. Not like a ghost in a movie, no poof of smoke or dramatic fade. She just wasn't there anymore. The Mazda, still parked. The keys, still in the ignition. The driver's door, slightly ajar. And me, left standing in the dirt, shaking like I'd seen a... The Mazda was still warm. I stood there staring at the open driver's door, waiting for someone, anyone, to come running back, yelling that it was a prank or a misunderstanding. But the trees were still. The road was empty. And the only sound was my own breathing, sharp and uneven. I leaned into the car. The inside smelled faintly of citrus and something older, like mildew and worn leather. There was a red canvas backpack slumped in the passenger seat, zipped halfway open. My fingers hovered over it, trembling. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Inside were 3 things: a gas station receipt from earlier that day in Lake Charles, a manila folder sealed shut with duct tape, and a photo, an old one. I pulled it out. It was of me and Anna. Taken the summer before she died, back when she was working nights at the diner and I was still bartending downtown. We were sitting on the hood of her old Corolla, drinking cherry sodas, laughing about something I can't even remember. Someone had drawn a red X across my face. Heavy. Angry. I dropped the photo. That's when I noticed something tucked into the door panel, a scrap of paper, yellowed and creased. It read, "He knows. Don't trust anyone in Lafayette, not even Drew." My throat went dry. The handwriting was familiar. It was Anna's. I staggered back from the car like I'd been electrocuted. This wasn't just some random vehicle left on the side of the road. This was a message, a setup, a breadcrumb trail with my name on it. And that girl, whoever or whatever she was, she knew I was coming. But how? And why now? I picked up the receipt. The timestamp said 3:42 p.m. That was 5 hours ago, which meant whoever left that car there had been nearby not long before I showed up. And if that really was Anna, how the hell was she here? That question clamped around my chest like a vice. Because if it wasn't her, if it was someone trying to look like her, then this was more than just grief or hallucination. This was a threat. I heard the cruiser door slam behind me. The officer was walking back, holding my license, looking less patient and more suspicious by the second. I shoved the photo and note into my jacket pocket, slammed the door of the Mazda, and turned to face him. "You know this vehicle?" he asked. I shook my head. "No idea. Just thought I saw something weird. Sorry, it's been a long shift." He studied me for a beat, then handed my ID back. "Try to keep your eyes on the road next time." I nodded, but my brain was miles away, because something wasn't adding up. And deep down, I already knew what I had to do next. I had to go back, to the place where Anna was last seen alive. I had to find out what really happened that night, even if it meant digging up secrets I'd spent 5 years trying to bury. It was nearly 1 a.m. when I pulled off the main road and onto the gravel path that led to the creek where they found Anna's body. The headlights from my Silverado lit up the wooden barrier, 3 planks nailed crookedly across 2 splintered posts, with a crooked sign that read, "No trespassing, city maintenance." No one maintained this place. Not since Anna. They'd all moved on. Or pretended to. But I couldn't, not tonight. The trees leaned in like old witnesses, crowding the path as I drove through, slow and deliberate. My tires crunched over dead leaves. The air smelled like wet bark and something sharp like ozone before a storm. It had rained the night she died. I remember that because I'd been working the late shift and saw the storm roll in through the bar windows, thunder like cannon fire, streets flooding by midnight. And yet Anna had been walking, alone, on foot, in the rain. That never made sense to me. She hated getting wet. Always said rain made her feel like the world was crawling all over her. I parked beside the clearing, killed the engine, and stepped out. The silence hit me harder than the cold. This was where they said she was probably hit, the term they used in the report. Probable cause of death, blunt force trauma. Probable time, sometime between midnight and 3 a.m. Probable direction she was heading, home. Everything about her case was probable. Nothing certain. Nothing that told me why her shoes were missing, why she had a bruise on her wrist that didn't match the others, or why there were tire tracks leading away from the scene, tracks the report barely mentioned. I stepped closer to the edge of the creek. The water glistened under the moonlight, calm and glassy, and that's when I saw it. Not in the water, in the dirt. Fresh tracks. Not just tire prints, but boot prints. A few yards from the same patch where they'd pulled Anna from the water. Someone had been here. Recently. I knelt down, heart hammering. The tread was deep, heavy, like someone pacing or watching. I followed it 10 feet before stopping dead in my tracks. Buried half in the mud, sticking out like a bone, was a phone. Old, caked in grime, screen shattered. I pulled it free with my jacket sleeve. It was Anna's. I knew it instantly. The faded sunflower sticker on the back, the same one she refused to replace even when the phone barely worked. The police never recovered it. They said it had probably been taken by the car that hit her. I turned it over. The power button was rusted, dead. But it didn't matter. Someone had returned it. Planted it. Like they wanted me to find it. That was when I heard the crunch of leaves behind me. I froze. Someone was in the woods. Watching. The knock. I didn't run at first. I told myself I imagined the sound, but then it came again, slow, deliberate footsteps through the brush. Not animals, not wind, human. I yanked out my flashlight and swung it behind me, beam jerking through trees and shadows. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I scanned the tree line. Nothing. Just that tight stillness that happens when something knows it's being hunted, or is about to pounce. I backed away from the creek, heart thudding so loud I swore it echoed. I didn't turn my back until I reached the truck, half expecting someone to be standing right behind me. But the clearing was empty. I locked the doors the second I got in. Drove out fast. Headlights cutting through the mist, gravel flying behind me. Back home, I tossed the muddy phone into a bag of rice like that would fix anything and tried to sleep. Didn't happen. The image of Anna's face, smiling in the road, whispering, "You weren't supposed to see me," it wouldn't let go. Neither would that note in the Mazda. Whoever planted that phone? They wanted me to follow the trail. But why now, 5 years later? Around 6 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went out front to get the mail. My boots hadn't even hit the bottom step when I saw it. A plain white envelope, no name, no address, just taped to my front door. I knew better, but I opened it anyway. Inside was a photo, not a printed one, Polaroid, of me, taken last night, standing at the creek, phone in hand. There was a second photo behind it. This one was older. It showed Anna, only not from 5 years ago. This was recent, like within the last few months. She was sitting at an outdoor cafe, head down, hair tied back. My knees nearly buckled. She was alive. That should have made me feel hopeful. Relieved. Something. But all I felt was dread. Because if she was alive, then who the hell was buried in her place? And who had been following me? That question sat with me all morning. I stared at the photos until my eyes ached. I almost called someone, my ex, my old friend at the sheriff's office. But I didn't. Instinct said no. Someone was watching, playing a long game. Then came the second knock. This time on the back door. The stranger. The back door rattled once, just loud enough to make me grab the nearest thing that could pass for a weapon, a fireplace poker. I crept through the kitchen, heart hammering, every step echoing in my skull. Then I saw him, standing outside. Not a cop, not a neighbor. A man, mid-40s maybe, unshaven, tired eyes, wearing a green Carhartt jacket with mud-stained jeans. He didn't look dangerous, but he looked like trouble. I cracked the door, but kept the poker in full view. "Who the hell are you?" I asked. "Name's Eli," he said, raising his hands. "I used to know your sister." That was enough to make me open the door fully, but just a few inches. "Used to?" He nodded. "Before she disappeared, before the fire." "What fire?" Eli glanced behind him as if someone might be listening. "Can I come in? Or would you rather talk out here with your little shadow friend watching from the woods?" That did it. I let him in. He didn't sit, just stood in the middle of the room like someone expecting to be shot at any moment. "I met Anna 2 years ago," he said. "She was working under a fake name, Marcy, at a bait shop out near Natchitoches." I didn't respond. I just stared. "She kept to herself," he continued. "But I recognized her. Eventually, we talked once. She said she wasn't ready to go home, said someone was still looking for her, watching." "Who?" I asked, my voice raw. He gave me a long look. "That's why I'm here." "I think you are." I laughed, not the funny kind, the bitter, barked kind. "You think I was hunting my own sister?" He shrugged. "Not you exactly, but someone using your name." I froze. "What are you talking about?" Eli reached into his coat and pulled out a wrinkled envelope. Inside were more Polaroids. Anna, again, at a gas station. On a ferry, always looking over her shoulder. Every photo had the same caption on the back in red ink. "Drew knows. Drew sees." I sank into the nearest chair. My stomach was a knot of ice. "Someone made her believe I was after her," I whispered. Eli nodded. "And now they want you to think she's alive. Just long enough to drag you into whatever this is." I looked up. "You don't think she's really alive?" "I think someone wants you to believe she is." I thought about the Mazda, the photo, the phone. "And the girl on the road?" I asked. Eli's face darkened. "I saw her too," he said. "Last month, just like you described. Denim jacket, that same smile. That's why I came looking." We sat in silence for a long moment. Then Eli said, "Whatever this is, it's not just about Anna. It's about you." The farmhouse sat at the end of a dirt road, so narrow and twisted it looked like it hadn't seen a vehicle in years. Even in daylight, it gave off the kind of vibe that made your skin tighten. Eli killed the engine, and we coasted the last few yards in silence. "This is where she stayed?" I asked, eyeing the weathered boards and sagging porch. "For a few weeks," Eli said, "until it burned." The structure looked abandoned, but not collapsed. Black streaks charred the frame near the roof, and broken glass crunched beneath our boots as we stepped inside. "She was here," he murmured, walking past the skeleton of what used to be a couch. I followed slowly, scanning the walls, the ash-covered floor, the kitchen. Everything looked ruined. Except one thing. A desk. Still standing. Half-burned. Drawer intact. Eli stepped forward to open it, but I reached out first. Inside was a leather-bound notebook. And inside that notebook, pages of scrawled, frantic writing. Names, dates, drawings. But one word repeated over and over, circled, underlined, sometimes scratched into the page hard enough to tear it. Watcher. Eli read over my shoulder, his voice low. She said someone was following her, always just out of sight, sometimes taking her things, leaving messages, making her think she was going crazy. I turned the page. A sketch. Crude but unmistakable. It was me. Or someone who looked just like me. The face was distorted, the eyes completely blacked out. Underneath, Anna had written, "Not Drew. Looks like him, talks like him, but he's not real. He's not real." I sat down hard on the floor. "I think she saw someone impersonating me," I whispered, "or thought she did. But what if it wasn't just in her head?" Eli didn't answer right away. Then he held up something he'd just picked up from the floor, an old, scorched cell phone battery. "We're not dealing with coincidence," he said. "We're dealing with construction. Someone has been building this." I looked around the farmhouse again. It didn't feel abandoned anymore. It felt like a trap that had already sprung. And right then, my phone buzzed. No caller ID. I picked up. A voice on the other end whispered just 2 words before the line cut out. "She remembers." Voice still echoes in my head. She remembers. It was her. I knew it the second I heard it. Anna's voice, just older, tired, laced with something that wasn't quite fear. More like resignation. Like she knew this call would change everything. Eli watched me lower the phone with a blank stare. "Who was it?" I looked up slowly. "Anna." His jaw tightened. "Then she's alive." "Or I've officially lost it," I muttered, sliding the notebook into my jacket. Back in the truck, the silence between us was thick. We didn't talk on the ride back, didn't need to. We both felt it. This wasn't just about finding Anna anymore. It was about unearthing something that didn't want to be found. I dropped Eli at his place and told him I'd call if I learned anything. I didn't mean it. Not because I didn't trust him, but because deep down, I knew this last stretch was something I had to do alone. Back at my house, I locked the doors, closed every curtain, and sat at my kitchen table flipping through the notebook again. Page after page, Anna's paranoia bled through in ink and panic. Then, on one of the last pages, barely legible, was something different. A map. Hand-drawn, scratchy, showing a back road near the swamp with one word written across the X. Home. My blood ran cold. Home wasn't our house. It was a cabin. One no one else knew about. Our grandfather's old fishing shack, buried deep in the woods near Lake Martin. We hadn't been there since we were kids. I hadn't thought about that place in a decade. And yet, here it was, in her handwriting. I checked the time. 11:27 p.m. Whatever was waiting, it would be there. I packed a flashlight, my old revolver, and the notebook, slid the Polaroids into my pocket. I started the truck without turning on the radio. The road to Lake Martin was empty, slick with dew and lined with fog. As I got closer, my stomach began to twist. Not because I was afraid she wouldn't be there, but because I was afraid she would. The cabin looked smaller than I remembered. The roof sagged, the windows were dark, but the chimney puffed smoke in thin, rhythmic breaths. Someone was inside. I parked 100 feet back, killed the lights, and approached on foot, quiet, cautious. Every crunch of gravel under my boots sounded like a thunderclap. When I reached the porch, the front door creaked open slowly, just an inch, and from the darkness a voice whispered, "You came." It was her, Anna. Alive. She stepped into the pale moonlight filtering through the cabin window, hair longer, streaked with gray, eyes tired, sharp, but it was her. No doubt. I couldn't speak, my throat locked. She didn't cry, didn't hug me, just stepped aside and said, "It's not safe out here." Inside, the cabin was warm. Fire crackling, a teapot on the stove, it felt lived in. She poured 2 cups without a word, sat down and waited. Like she knew I had 100 questions and didn't want to waste time with small talk. "How?" I finally managed. "How are you alive?" Her hands curled around the mug like she needed it to stay grounded. "I faked it," she said. My mouth dropped. "You faked your death?" She nodded. "It wasn't supposed to go that far, but once I saw how deep it went, I couldn't go back." "Deep what?" She looked at me, and in that moment, she wasn't my sister. She was someone who had seen things she'd never come back from. There's a reason we never found who hit me. There was never a car. It was a message, a warning. I shook my head. "From who?" Anna hesitated, then pulled a photo from under the table. A Polaroid. Of me. But younger, standing next to someone I didn't recognize, tall, severe, wearing a sheriff's badge. "That man," she said. "Sheriff Kane. Your mentor. He's not who you think." My gut turned. 5 years ago, I found out what he was doing, how he was using accident reports to cover up disappearances. Girls, mostly. Runaways, addicts, no one anyone would miss. I remembered the cases, the vague write-ups, the probables. I confronted him, Anna continued. Told him I'd go to the press. 2 days later, I was nearly dead on the side of the road. She paused. I only survived because someone helped me disappear. I leaned back, trying to process it. So this watcher, it's not a person, she said. It's a pattern, a system, and they use people like you, clean records, steady jobs, to keep tabs without them ever knowing. My stomach dropped. You're saying I was being used? She nodded. All this time, they've been watching you, and through you, me. Then she pulled out the last item, a file folder. Inside were copies of reports, some with my name signed at the bottom. Transfers, redactions, even dispatch logs I didn't remember submitting. You didn't write these, Drew, but someone made it look like you did. And right there, under a grainy photocopy of my signature, was the final twist. A signed order, declaring Anna Morgan officially deceased, signed by me, dated 2 days after she disappeared. I didn't sign that, I whispered. Anna stared at the folder between us like it might explode. I know, she said quietly, but someone wanted it to look like you did, so I'd stay gone, and you'd stay loyal. My hands trembled, not from fear, but rage. At the system. At Sheriff Kane. At myself for never asking more questions. How long have you been watching me? I asked. Since the first letter showed up, she said. They wanted me scared. Unstable. They thought if I saw you show up in those photos, I'd run farther, or come crawling back, but I didn't. I looked around the cabin, its simplicity, the neat piles of documents, the single backpack in the corner. Anna had lived here like a ghost. Careful. Erased. What now? I asked, my voice barely audible. She slid a USB drive across the table. This has everything. Dates, reports, photos, some of it even links to Kane's finances, payments to people who never existed. You take it to someone clean, out of state, maybe. And you, she hesitated. I can't come back, Drew. I'd never survive a second funeral. We sat in silence, fire crackling between us. Then I said it. You could. Her eyes met mine, tired, cautious, hopeful. I mean it, I continued. You tell your story on your terms, not theirs. We go public, no more hiding. She shook her head. You don't know what they'll do. Then we make sure they don't get the chance. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the courthouse in Baton Rouge, USB drive in one hand, envelope of printed photos in the other. The DA was waiting. Clean, connected, and furious by the time she saw what I handed over. By noon, Sheriff Kane was placed on administrative leave. A formal inquiry was announced. News vans parked outside the station. They didn't mention Anna. Not yet. But they would. She watched it all from a distance, tucked safely away with a burner phone and a new name. Again. But this time, she wasn't running. She was waiting. Waiting for the storm she'd spent years hiding from to finally roll over. Update 1 month later. The first arrests were made. Turns out the watcher wasn't one person, but a loop of quiet threats and forged paperwork that reached higher than anyone guessed. Kane wasn't the only name on those documents, but his was the first to fall. Anna sent me one more letter. No return address. Just a photo. Her, standing on a beach at sunrise. The back said, "You weren't supposed to see me, but I'm glad you did." And that was the last I heard from her. Sometimes I check the rearview mirror a little longer than I should. Sometimes I still hear the word watcher in the corners of my sleep. But mostly, I just sit on the porch at dusk, sip coffee, and whisper the same words I said to her that night at the cabin. No more running.